actually during the Depression they started advertising. They started advertising canned vegetables as saving you time over fresh vegetables, as if they were equivalent. Well, once you convince people that canned vegetables are the equivalent of fresh vegetables, you know, you can do anything with them. And we were just, nobody was here, how can I put it? We didn't have a peasant class in this country. We never had a class of people who were peasants, who were farmers, who had a peasant cuisine, and we never developed any of that Europe has. We had only this sort of, let's keep taking more and more land, and if you start in New England, you end up to in the Midwest because you've ruined your land back there, and you move on, and it wasn't a culture that encouraged staying in place and developing your food supplies in place. It was a culture that encouraged the opposite. And it's a very complex story, but it has to do with all kinds of economic development pushes and ways that we thought people developed, and our lack of respect for retaining farmland and all kinds of things. When you control the genes, you control everything. You know, you say, well, you can't do that because that's our gene. You know, that's our gene that's in your plant, and we'll sue you for that. And they're suing farmers who end up with this stuff accidentally on their land. I mean, it's amazing the kind of heavy-handedness that a company like Monsanto has done in order to get. I was on the National Organic Standards Board when it was deciding that there couldn't be any GMO in organic. And we were asked by numbers of people not to wait, to not put that in at the beginning, to wait and see how, and what they wanted and what they knew would happen was they would get contamination. And enough would be contaminated that it would be moot. You wouldn't be able to say, and it almost is. It almost is, because every crop, I heard this 2 or 3 years ago from a farm, every corn plant in Iowa has some GMO contamination because pollen spreads. It goes around, you know, it doesn't stick where you're supposed to put it. And so they're trying to make it, that's why they're fighting so hard to get it into Europe. Because once you get it into one country, it will spread. It's like an infection, you know, it does its thing. It's pollen, it blows around. So I don't use these words because I'm not particularly religious, but they are truly evil. What they're doing is evil. This is the world's food supply. You do not do this to the world's food supply. You do not throw out there this untested technology and try to take over the whole world's food supply with it. You know, it's very scary to me.
For profit.
For profit, that's right.
I mean, not that there's anything wrong with profit.
Right,
but there's a higher standard that needs,
yes,
when you're talking about the nation or the world's food supply.
Yes, absolutely. Very well put. Absolutely.
You mean we can't depend on the genetically modified seeds and some of the other ideas from corporate agriculture to save us?
No, unfortunately, as I heard someone years ago make the comment that what genetically modified seed was another attempt to work their way out of the problems they'd created with pesticides and herbicides and that kind of problems that were resulting. So they could now get a new way of totally controlling everything, but it ain't working. I mean, it just is not working. It has no long-term reliability. They don't trust these things long-term. Who knows in the long run what's going to happen to the foods that they've genetically modified, or who even knows if they're safe. I mean, I have to say, if you want to talk about corporate power, we don't know. They haven't been tested. And every time someone tries, as I heard Michael Chapella, is that his name? Chapella, who's the one at University of California, Berkeley, who put out a study just with the facts in it that genetically modified corn was found in traditional corn in Mexico, contaminating it. And it was almost a career-ending paper. I mean, it was published, and then this machine started working and saying he was irresponsible, it was not correct, it was bad research, they never should have published it. They got all these people they found scientists who would back them up, and they almost destroyed his career. And he said to ask certain questions about genetically engineered food is to end your career. If you're a young scientist, forget it. Now that's really, really terrible. So we don't know. I mean, there's a very good book out, I wish, Jeffrey Smith is his name, that's right. Yes, Jeffrey Smith, about, oh shoot. If I'd known I was going to talk about this, I would have looked it up. I can't think of the name of the book, but what he's done is he's gone through and looked at every study that has been done to see whether there's any hint that there's a problem, and there certainly are hints. And it's a beautiful piece of work. So anybody wants to know about it, they should email me.